How estrogens and progesterone influence the aging process is something we will continue to discuss in this video. I'm Dr. Olena Berezovska and I welcome you to my YouTube channel. Estrogen production decreases more slowly than progesterone production. As a result, the ratio between estrogen and progesterone changes. However, this does not mean that this balance needs to be immediately regulated, controlled, or corrected. That would be a serious mistake. An excess of estrogen may lead to various proliferative processes, including fibroids, cysts, more precise cystomas, and even malignant conditions. This is a delicate balance, and it is best not to interfere aggressively with it. The entire hypothalamic pituitary system, which controls ovarian function and receives feedback from the ovaries, is a highly sophisticated and well-regulated mechanism. As I mentioned earlier, the ovaries have two primary functions, reproductive and hormonal. With age, we no longer require such high levels of hormones, particularly estrogens. It is natural that our genetic apparatus gradually changes and deteriorates. This is especially true for germ cells, which we receive at the moment of our conception, not throughout the life. In this way, the body itself creates biological barriers that prevent reproduction at 50, 60, or 70. In 99% of cases, either a woman would be unable to carry a pregnancy or the offspring would be unhealthy. Excess estrogen in this context may be harmful. This is why I want you to understand one key concept: balance is everything. How do we determine whether this balance exists? In most cases, there is no need to measure or define anything aggressively. What is necessary is awareness. We are entering a new stage of life, the menopausal period, and recognizing this phase as natural can help reduce fear and promote a positive mind. I do not even like calling it a transition. I also dislike terms like before and after. This is simply life. It is the life continuum. In Eastern cultures, older women are deeply respected. It is believed that they have fulfilled their maternal role and deserve care, honor, and respect. In many Eastern societies, mothers and grandmothers are highly valued, and notably, these cultures experience far fewer so-called menopausal symptoms. Why? Because their mental and emotional perception of this life stage is entirely positive. It is even a source of pride and understanding that this is a natural and meaningful phase of life. That is why one should rejoice in reaching this stage and being able to fulfill a different role. Often this role is that of a wise mentor, passing on life experience, teaching younger generations and supporting them. Traditionally, this is precisely the function of older women, especially in large or extended families. Those familiar with Eastern traditions and worldviews know how significantly a woman's social status increases after the age of 50 and how respectfully she is treated. Statistics confirm this all well. Women from Eastern cultures experience menopausal symptoms much less frequently or not at all. This is particularly true for Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Korean women. The reason lies in a fundamentally different perception of this period of life. Of course, it is important to be aware of one's health risk. We will discuss this in an upcoming lecture. It is essential to understand what need to be monitored, which examinations should be done periodically, and why. Regular checkups, blood pressure monitoring, and bone density tests are practical steps to maintain health during this stage. And it is equally important to love yourself, respect your body, and respect your life stage. Incorporate gentle exercise, balanced nutrition, and stress management into your routine. Do not allow anyone to plant the idea in your mind that aging is something terrible, that everything is bad, that something must urgently be taken, injected, or that vaginal rejuvenation or other so-called procedures are necessary. This does not work. It is simply a way to extract money. It is not medicine. Unfortunately, there are very few professionals willing to speak openly about this. Why? Because everything ultimately comes down to profit. I once had a conversation with a colleague. He owns a large clinic, is considered progressive, an excellent surgeon, and highly respected specialist. He showed me photos of his clinic, modern, beautiful, and very well equipped, and proudly said, "Everything here is based strictly on evidence-based medicine." However, among the services listed on the clinic's board were gynecological and vaginal rejuvenation, among the others. I said to him, "Wait a moment, what do you mean by rejuvenation? You just said everything here is evidence-based, but this is not medicine, this is pure commercial practice." He hesitated and replied, "Well, you understand, society wants this and it brings profit." Yes, I understand. The society is obsessed with this idea, but then it cannot be called evidence-based medicine. If such a procedure appears in your price list, it means the gynecology offering it is professionally outdated. Several other terms on that list could not be classified as medicine at all. My colleague was genuinely shocked and did not know what to say, but I understand perfectly well he will not remove these services because this is business, this is commerce. This is a clear example. Everyone talks about evidence-based medicine, but in practice it often turns out to be something very different. Now, let us remember that all aging processes are natural. Do not be afraid of this word, aging. When we see only wrinkles or skin changes, we may think the exterior is aging. In reality, the heart and blood vessels age as well. That is why blood pressure rises and hypertension develops. Women are also more prone to ischemic heart disease. Bone tissue loses calcium, and not only calcium, creating conditions for osteoporosis, especially in women who either move very little or conversely exhaust themselves with excessive physical activity. We will definitely discuss osteoporosis separately. The skin also changes because collagen production decreases with age. No procedures or medication can stop this process. Collagen is genetically determined. Therefore, collagen injections or collagen supplements do not work. It is extremely difficult to convince people of this because everyone is taking something, even as age-related changes continue. Muscles weaken with age, even in physically active individuals. They lose part of the elastic component, which is why they do not always appear toned, especially against the background of aging skin. Posture changes as well. The gastrointestinal tract and excretory system fortunately continue to function relatively well, and this is their great strength. The intestine, the surrounding lymphatic system, and the gut microbiome play a crucial role in immune defense, recovery, and regeneration. Today, enormous attention is focused on the gut microbiome. There is substantial evidence that healthy intestinal function supports the well-being of the entire body, including the skin, muscles, and other organs. That is why we will certainly address this topic when we discuss nutrition. So yes, everything changes, but not as quickly and not as tragically as it may seem. And this is the essence. These processes are physiological. They could not be labeled as pathology or transformed into something negative that supposedly requires correction. In the next lecture, we will discuss the signal flag of the transition into perimenopause and menopause, what to pay attention to, and whether it is possible to predict the onset of menopause. For now, let us summarize. First, perimenopause and menopause are natural physiological stages in a woman's life. They should not be turned into something frightening or negative. Second, despite the aging process, which affects everyone without exception, a woman who wishes to live actively and fully can remain attractive, beautiful, and charismatic. True self-care is not primarily about cosmetics or procedures. Especially when it comes to appearance, women tend to compare themselves with others and seek attention. But all of this is highly individual and not directly related to aging itself. If a woman does not lose her charisma, if she knows her worth and understands that femininity is not limited to appearance, makeup, manicured hands, or slim legs, femininity is deep. Femininity is a continuation of life. Menopause does not mark the end of life. Nothing is frightening after menopause, only natural forwards movement. Menstruation does not make a woman younger. It's merely an artificially induced bleeding. Hormonal medication may create this illusion of menstruation, but when it's meant to stop, it will stop. I have never met a woman who took hormonal medication for 10, 15, or 20 years, was a contraceptives or hormone replacement therapy, and looked genuinely younger or preserved true usefulness because of it. Recently, I watched one of Madonna's interviews, the first in nearly 9 years. It was fascinating, focused on spiritual development. Her face looked well cared for, but her hands clearly revealed her age. Life cannot be fully concealed. So do not fight yourself by trying to hide the inevitable. Do not spend enormous sum on plastic surgery and invasive procedures. It is far better to invest it in rest, self-development, meaningful experiences, not in pain that will ultimately fail to deliver lasting satisfaction. We will continue our conversation next time and discuss other important topics.